Hello, yes, it is Sunday night, and what a week it has been. This week there was too much to even put in the dock. Tonight we are going to be talking about the Antigravity A1, the big announcement from Insta360, but in sort of a separate company partnership. We're going to be talking about another huge piece of news, but FPV specifically, and that is the TBS Chupito. We're going to talk about HDZero because they have released a set of NDAA compliant products. Flywoo have finally done what DJI couldn't, and that's give us a camera for the O4 air unit. However, there are a few provisos there. And we're going to be talking about whatever comes up along the way as well, because it has been an incredibly big week. And I've been away. I've just got back. As you can see, I haven't even had a chance to have a shave. I'm going full 8 mode this week. But I have been keeping an eye on what is going on. And I've also been using this a lot this week. And I am going to be talking about my findings so far with the DJI Osmo 360, because I've spent about a week and a half with it now, and I have some interesting observations on the camera which I want to share as well. I'm going to do a review on this from my perspective in the next couple of weeks, but I thought I would share with you some of the upfront stuff as well. Now, my cup of tea has just arrived, which is timing impeccable as always. So I'm gonna give DJI a shameless plug because they do so much for me. And I thought of all of the brands who do a lot for me, we should promote the one. Ooh, did you hear that? That was my phone. Oh, that sounded like it landed on the screen as well. No, it's fine. There we go. Yeah, of all of the brands to promote, it shouldn't really be that one. But yes, so it has been an incredible week, and I did put a video out on some of this stuff earlier this week. I had sort of lined up some content this week because I was away. However, obviously the massive news this week, and it is FPV related, but it isn't, but it is, and that is this, which is the Antigravity A1 from Insta360, or at least Antigravity in partnership with Insta360. And this has turned into being quite the interesting launch, because it's not just about a camera drone this. We have, as I said, a set of FPV goggles. We have something new. And what is amazing about this is it is something new. It isn't just another camera drone. And I probably want to get this up front. You know, you see a lot of people talking about, oh, is this going to give DJI the kick they need? Is this going to give competition? Yes and no, because look, this isn't an out-and-out replacement for everything that DJI does. You know, it's not going to replace your Mavic 4. It's not going to replace the Mini 4 or soon-to-be-released Mini 5. But what this actually is another tool in the box. And I am going to talk a bit about 360 FPV drones as well, because we're going to do a bit of content on some of the other ones too. But also, I'm incredibly interested in how they're doing it, because there's so much under the hood here. And I'll share some observations. They have obviously soft launched this coming towards the end of the year. They're looking for beta testers. I'll test this for you if you want me. We'll put it through its paces. Obviously, we'll sign any NDAs. Hello, Insta360. We would be more than happy to take a look at this on the channel and feedback. I think it's interesting. I think there are some mistakes, and I think there's some stuff I think they've done that has made their life overly difficult, and I will talk about. I'll talk about that as well. Risking being critical probably might even sign me out of this, but I'm going to give some feedback on what I've seen now. But here's where the real interesting is. I want to know what they're doing, like from a video perspective. Is this Wi-Fi? Is this something else? Is this artisan-based? Is it... We don't know. The truth here is we don't know. And when you get into it, it really... There's a lot of unanswered questions. Insta, though, also have to be careful now. And they've done something extremely dangerous. And that thing that they've done is extremely dangerous is they've now gone, hey, we've got this, and it's going to be with you in about 5 months. No one should ever really give DJI that much airtime. And look, DJI already has this. I'm not saying it's as good as the Insta360s, but they already have this. What would it take for DJI to put the two together? I don't think it's that crazy. So they need to be careful because I've seen this happen before. I've been around a very long time. And shouting is brilliant, but you have to be really careful with a company like DJI because they will fill the gap and iterate quickly. And even if we sat here and thought DJI had nothing today and they went, right, we're going to do this, they could deliver a product in that time frame. Be a push, but they could do it. So, interesting times. What I really liked was some of the footage, and I ain't going to show too many of the videos. I tell you what I was a bit disappointed in. In every video, no one showed goggles footage. And actually, I think even some of the footage that I saw, I feel was a bit misleading. And I'm going to call out Potato Jet as an example. And I'm not saying it was done intentionally, but I do think some of the footage, for instance, what they said was, oh, look, you can look down. And then they showed footage from the 360 camera looking down. It implied it was from goggles footage, but it wasn't because no one showed goggles footage. We don't know at all what goggles footage looks like. We don't even know if it's got a DVR. But they it was sort of, oh, look, you can look down, and you can, but it was hard. It was just, there were elements that I felt were done to try and get a message across without the product quite being there yet. But look, let's see. We just don't know. It's definitely an interesting product. It's definitely doing something no one has done. No one has given us full immersive 360-degree live view footage. Ignore the recording, right? You can record with this. No one has done full 360 potentially live view footage. And that is what is incredibly interesting here. That is the key to this product. And I think they've gone too far on some stuff. I'm not saying they're bad features. But when we're talking about things like the goggles, right, for starters, I think the screen on the outside is a waste of money, if I'm honest. And this touch screen over this side for controlling settings. I sort of understand why they've done it. Because they don't have a normal remote controller with a screen and a tablet attached that you can control it from. So what they've sort of done is turn the goggles into a sort of semi-external controller for you to be able to change the settings and everything. It does make sense when you think about what they've done, but I think they should be better served with a proper remote controller as well. Today, there isn't a proper remote. They've only got this. One mistake I think they've made, and whether, look, Insta, here's free of charge feedback for you. Your control scheme is completely different to DJI. You've made that choice. But why? Why make your life harder when there is already a subset of users out there who are used to using the DJI motion controller? Why not replicate what already works? And my only worry was the sheer amount of movement needed to move the aircraft with that remote. DJI have this great where you tilt left and tilt right to turn. So you don't have to move, your wrist can move. To actually turn to move the aircraft, I think is too much. Or at least Insta, why not create two different ways of doing it? And have the DJI method actually works quite well. I'm not convinced having to do that to turn the aircraft is a great idea. I think it's too much into body movement for general flight. There's also a dial, but that seemed a bit weird because I think they need to change that from positional to rate control. It sounded like the dial. So the way I was reading it was, if you imagine that's the dial, you do that and it'll turn to that point and stop, or you do that and it'll turn to that point and stop, which is a positional control. They need to change that more to a rate control. So the more you move it, the faster it rotates, and then when you come back to the center. But yeah, there's a lot of little things, I think that they can improve on and tweak, but really cool to see. Something new, something innovative. Is Antigravity its own company? Yes. My understanding is it's a spin-off from Insta360, is what my understanding is. It's not Insta, but it is Insta, but it's a spin-off company. But yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. What's not to like about something new? Because look, we haven't had new.
Welcome to the world of anti-gravity. What you're about to see.
I need to mute. I do think they are on marketing max, and that always worries me. Interesting, you've got top and bottom camera. These are vision cameras, which is good to see for object sensing, object avoidance. You've got your 360 camera on the top and bottom. You will notice that there is VPS underneath as well. Again, something, I get why they've done it, but again, slightly over-engineered with the feet coming down. Interesting, but I'm not sure about this. I think that's, personally, I think that's pointless. That's money wasted. What's good to see is that they have added a front view camera. Let's hope it's better than what's on DJI Goggles 3, because theirs is a complete waste of time. We don't know about the video system in any shape or form. It could be Wi-Fi, it could be custom, it could be artisan based, it will be proprietary, that's for sure, but we just have no idea what kind of wireless video system it is. I think the goggles look okay. It is definitely something new. .360 capture. Top and bottom, which is good to see. Hopefully the stitching is really good. It's going to do 8K video, although it couldn't do 8K in the reviews, could it? It's got object sensing at the front. So that is obviously how it's looking around. And the way it was described by Peter McKinnon actually was the one. It is 2x 4K. That'll be the same as DJI. Yes, it will be 2x 4K, exactly the same as this. The way Peter McKinnon described the live view was a box in the center, which is your direction of travel, and then you can look around that box for the 360 view. You've got to take into account, look, 360 cameras are somewhat compromised simply by the amount of field of view you are trying to jam into that pixel pitch. When you do the math on a 360 camera, you are trying to jam in an incredible amount into that. You know, to get if you take this is two 4K images, 4K and 4K, but that 4K image on the front is not the same as having 4K on the DJI Action, as an example, because you're cramming in a much smaller field of view into it. But yeah, this does look incredibly interesting. Can it zoom? I don't know. I don't know. There's lots of details we don't know. The controller ergonomics look about right. Point in any direction you want. I'm intrigued at how this works. Where she showed that there was almost like a bit of a view of what you're seeing. Is it me? I did notice something then, and I noticed it earlier. Wait there. They almost look like infrared sensors. I hope they're not. Yeah, 1080 would be a good number. It's roughly that. It's not exact, but it would be roughly 1080 cropped in, yes. Because of the pixel pitch. You've got image sensing. Yeah. I thought this was weird marketing. Why are they talking about built to fly, not carry? Bit weird. That is a weird thing to put into your main marketing material. Yeah, I know it's not a war drone, but nowhere here is it pitching it is. Do you know what? You would have been far better there going, it's got NFC systems that limit it. You know, it's not so weird. Yeah, but it is, because DJI block the machines from being able to fly over there unless they're hacked. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. Yeah, it could be don't want to get banned like DJI. Yeah, but DJI's ban isn't to do with carrying weapons. DJI's ban is about data security. Bit weird. I think there's definitely different messages you could have put there than that. And to put it in the main marketing videos. I gotta say something. The kid staring at the guy with the goggles says a lot. Share your experience. Yes, stare into my face with goggles, will you? Stare into my mini monocular screen. Okay. Stare at me. And has the kid got to follow you around as he moves? Is that what's going to happen? So as you're sitting here going, what happens when you're looking up there? What's the kid doing? Can the kid fly? Sorry, Insta. It's a nice looking product. I do think, though, what the capabilities this has is very, very cool. Very, very cool. Now, look. The reality is, let's temper itself. It's a camera basically on a gimbal, but a 360 one. Horizon flip, pretty good. Tiny Planet, pretty cool. I think it will be way under the 259 gram. Also adding a 360 camera to any DJI. Yeah, but here's the interesting thing, Mayo Monkey. Laws of physics apply, right? Insta can't do anything that DJI can't do, right? So, the laws of physics apply to everyone equally. If Insta have got one below 250 grams, DJI can get one under 250 grams. Software gimbal, yeah. You know, you can't... They are not capable of magic out of the air that DJI can't. So we have to understand what they've done. It might be 250 grams without a battery. What usually happens with the batteries is, and this is the suspicion with the new DJI Mini 5, because those leaks hit this week, and the suspicion is they sell it with quite a low capacity battery to get it below the weight, and you can buy the aftermarket battery, which is heavier. Overall, though, I have to say, incredibly interesting. What is not to like? Something new, something interesting, new company. Bring it on. It's that simple. Bring it on. And yeah, and that's it. You know, I think that's all there is to really say right now. Let's see if they can deliver, and when it comes, I would love to test it. I would love to try it. I'd love to feed back on it. I sincerely hope it brings something new. I don't think it's going to run out and replace Mavic 4s Pros, or it's going to replace the Mini 5s. I think it's another tool, and it could be a very cool tool as well. Flight time on one battery, yeah. Did you see DJI made a new brand? There's a load of third-party brands coming out right now around DJI. There's a bunch of brands coming out. They're white-labeled DJI products. So yes, there's a bunch of these. It's basically the same product. But yeah, I have applied for a test for a prototype. I would love to. What do I think about the Insta360 Ultra Go? I don't know. I've not used it. Yeah, with Honor phones. I am shocked. Here is an interesting thing. I am shocked that DJI took this long to do, haven't done this, and it's taken this long. I am shocked that this took as long as it took. And interesting, you know, look, where I can say, you know, yeah, look, there's nothing here DJI can't do. And it gives me a nice opportunity to talk about the Osmo 360. I've been trying it for a week. I've been doing lots of testing on it. You might have seen a lot of comments around overheating, fogging and stuff like that. I've not experienced any fogging, although I'm convinced the fogging is due to the moisture from the thermal paste, and as long as you dry the camera out, it's fine. I'm convinced the fogging is the moisture in the thermal paste inside. I am absolutely convinced of it. Overheating wise, mine is fine. I'll be honest with you. I'm not seeing any great issues with it at all. I know some people have said they're having problems with theirs overheating. I just want to show you guys some things, actually. I'll be honest. No, you know, mine's been... I'm happy. I'm okay. It's like, yeah, it works. it works fine. We're not having problems. Now I got to find where I've hidden the files, the pictures, because there's some interesting pictures I want to show you. Did I put them into downloads? No, they're not into downloads. Are they on the desktop? I know they exist because I have seen them. Where has those thermal pictures gone? Are they in here? Oh, I know where they are. They're probably in the folder for the camera. They are. Who'd have thought I'd have put the pictures with... So, for those who are interested, so here's the thermal image from the front of the camera. You can see the mass area there. What's quite interesting is when you look at it on the side. So this side here is with the sensor mounts on that side. You can see here, the reason that is hotter is because that's where the sensor mounts on the front the back panel on that side. So again, you're seeing that hotter area there. But I've not found it terrible, I'll be honest. This was done in high bitrate mode as well. It needs some airflow, but one of the testers of the A1 said the range is suspiciously good for a first-gen drone. Well, look, okay, on that. So, if you want what I think they would... Okay, they are going to have a new way of communicating. It's going to be... Wi-Fi, or it's going to be some custom solution. If I was Insta360, I would pair up one of the Umbrella chipsets, which they're known to use, alongside the new Artisan chipset for the SDR. That is what I would do. That is what FEMI, or whatever they're called, do in their drones. And if I was going to do this, that's what I would do. So Artisan's new chipset offloads video encoding and processing and OS just like DJI now do. So it's basically an all-in-one RF modem chipset at the front, and then you've got your video processing. And we know Insta use Umbrella like DJI used to, and I would pair those two up. But they could be doing anything. They could be using something from Qualcomm, and they've completely designed the modem software themselves. They could be doing it more like HearLink. HearLink is using a 4G smartphone chipset with some tweaks to allow it to do the live feed. There are several things they could do. It could be straight Wi-Fi. We don't know. Lorna said it's suspiciously good. Someone has said to me, could you see DJI in there? No. Look, I would find it very hard to believe you would find OcuSync in there. Okay? That, I think, is a no-goer. No, I don't. Look, they are absolutely competitors. I don't see in any world this... not even 0.001% chance there is a partnership here with DJI. And if they're collaborating, it would... Look, Artisan, for Chinese, Artisan is the go-to company for this stuff. That's what Avatar uses. That's what FEMI uses. That's what pretty much all of the other Chinese cheap drones use as well. They all... Artisan are one of the bigger players in this market. You got to take into account Avatar HD. Avatar HD is a very old chipset. A very old chipset. I don't see any world where you'll see anything to do with DJI and their chipsets in this. I just don't see it. There are reasons why I'm saying that. Like you can't really say the goggles look similar to DJI. All goggles look similar. Goggles that all have built-in antennas pretty much look like that. It's not that similar. It's a set of goggles. You're always going to put the antennas at rabbit ears because rabbit ears is the ideal thing. We just don't know. We will have to wait and see. My bets will be Artisan with an umbrella chipset. That's what my bets are. If you want my bets. So yeah, look, the 360, I've been using it for a week or so. Overall, the camera is really actually quite good. DJI software is complete and utter junk. Their PC software, DJI Studio, is so bad it is unusable, in fact. And just to give you an idea, I cannot play back any files properly through the DJI Studio app on a 14900K 5080 with 128 gigs of RAM. It isn't a PC performance issue. It is the software is complete junk. And what you end up having to do is let it create the proxies, delete the proxies, and then if you're lucky, you might be able to get it to play back. The software is, and I mean, it is embarrassingly bad. The camera, though, is very, very good. And that's really all I can say about it. The camera is, I got no complaints about the camera. The onboard storage is actually really very good as well. It lasts quite a long time. Yeah, but look, if you've never used a 360, you have to take into account the image quality on this is not what you are going to get on an action camera of the same field of view. You've got to take into account you are trying to cram in that 180 degrees of image into the same sensor area. In essence, there is some sensor differences here, minor ones, but in essence, you are trying to cram all of that 180 degrees of view into the same pixel pitch as you would be trying to cram in a 16:9 image with a fixed field of view. So as a result of that, your image quality is always going to go down. Always going to go down. But look, I'm quite impressed. I'm hoping to get my hands on the Insta X5 as well, because I believe that is very, very good. Insta have reached out to me, I will say, and we've been talking. So I would like to try the Insta because I believe their software is a lot better. That's what lets this camera down is DJI software. They really need to do some work on that software. If they're serious about 360, they have to. What do I think about the lens replacement for 25 quid? It's okay. I would, though, prefer the lenses were replaceable. I am finding myself hypersensitive to these lenses. And here's the issue. DJI's price for replacing the lenses on the 360 is not expensive. It's not terrible. It's the ball ache of sending the camera back. I've just been away. I dropped this and I luckily didn't break the lens because I had the rubber cover on it. If I'd have broke the lens, I wouldn't have been using it again for the holiday. And that is where I have an issue. It's not the price. It's not the fact that it's easy to do with or hard. It's about having to send the camera back. Lon, I'm me. Nothing ever changes. It'll be what it will be. I've never seen... Look, I've never really said DJI restrictive. They just... I don't think I've ever said DJI restrictive. They control a much smaller group now. And it's not that you have to even bin it, but the 25 quid is a good deal. It's just, though, if you break it, then you're stuffed. And that's the problem. And I have found myself hypersensitive on the lenses. Yeah, they're fine. But that's the downside to it. That's the killer with it. I will say, though, DJI's ecosystem is phenomenal with their cameras and their mics. When you really get down to it, those couple of shorts I put out this week, for those who saw, I put a couple of shorts out. I recorded them on the Action 4 I bought at the same time as this, because I bought myself an Action 4 on sale. And DJI's sort of interlinked ecosystem is so good. Oh, it is so good. It really is. But yeah, so yeah, not too bad. I tell you something else I'm going to complain about. I'm not sure about the stick. Quality of this ain't great. Quality of this is not good at all. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. Is there anything for video like RTX does with gaming? Yeah, there are apps out there that can upscale. What you actually probably... Here's who will be the next winner of the 360 Camera Wars is the first app to introduce AI upscaling into the app. Yeah, look, DJI will inevitably do it on the second one. I'm just shocked. What's frustrating is it is on par spec for spec wise the X5. If they'd have done the lenses, honestly. But look, no fogging. I think if anyone's having fogging, just let them dry out. If you wanted to film on O4 Pro, would you shoot in 2048 and then render in 24? If you're happy with how 48 looks, yeah, absolutely. Right. The next bit of big news we need to talk about, and that is TBS. Now, there are times that I know I upset brands. I say things that people don't always like. And it wasn't long ago that I sat here at this table and said, I really like what TBS have done with the Mojito, but I think it's a bit much. I would have liked to have seen TBS do a wing for the masses, a wing for everyone. And what do you know? They have the Chupito. Oh, I've forgotten how to say it. I can't say it now. We're gonna have to listen to someone saying it before I can say it. The Cupitino or something like that. My brain has gone. Where is it? It's here.
What's up? My name is Kofi. I'm a member of Team Black Sheep, and I'm here to show you the newest addition to our fleet. It's called the Chupito.
Chupito, that's it. I couldn't get it out. Chupito. I couldn't get it out. Yes, TBS have released the Chupito, and I have to say, I am everything that I wanted the last craft to be. This is it. This is a wing for the masses with TBS's plug and play, and they've even gone beyond what I would have expected, because not only do we have an aircraft, we also have a new flight controller kit, which is really nice and plug and play, and they've done some really nice things here with this release, because it's not just how easy this thing is, but they've also even created a good package, which I like this, which is called the Crash-A-Lot set, where you get 2 sets of foams. And I know you could have bought 2 sets of foams, but I just like the fact that it is available from the store. So this new wing, what's really not to like? So we're going to put Kofi up.
It's a mini FPV.
He's put LEDs on his. I am not going... Chupito, I am not going to repeat Trappy's words around fitting LEDs. I got myself into enough trouble, and I ain't going down that road. For those who watched the stream. But it does look...
So regarding prop choice, this one is a 5.5. It will kill itself. There's always a maximum on this plane.
This is watching get it up in here. Come on.
As you can already see in one of Mr. Steele's videos.
I'm zero throttle.
They're showing some stuff there, so he's going to launch it. He did nice and easy to launch.
All right, let me show you how it launches.
Nice and easy. Yeah, look, it's great to see TBS bring something, and I think it ticks a lot of boxes for me from a brand like TBS. Really, really cool. Honestly, I am. It is everything I was thinking of. So what you've got, obviously, is the plane itself. Now, I'm not going to go into absolutely everything on it in this video. I'm waiting for me to do a video how to put a spoiler on a drone. TBS have got their video as well. With their AI music. They've just been landing them. Steely. The prop is protected from the spar top and bottom, so you're not going to get it in your face. I'm going to mute the music just because I get a copyright strike. Does move around a little bit. It's a little bit of a smaller... Looks nice with the LEDs on it. I'm still making no comments. It's overhead launch. It's no different to... So he lands it on concrete. Now, I don't know. Does the bottom spar have a plastic cover, or is he just landing that like that? Is there a plastic on the bottom? They did this with a needs nope. Yeah. Yeah, so you could see there. Yeah, you can see there the bottom. So that's what's stopping the prop catching the ground. Looks a really nice craft, I have to say. Yeah, I think I'd be 3D printing a cover for the bottom of that. They come in super fast, yes. Kofi used glue on the bottom, did he? Okay. So they've got this, obviously the wing itself, and then they've got the new flight controller kit for it as well, which we'll take a look at in a second. It's not, look, it's not always about what it does that the Dolphin doesn't. I think TBS is a brand that put a package together very well. The Dolphin is a good wing, and I'm going to order in a Dolphin at the same time, but every time I try to order in some of these in the UK, they're out of stock. What would be nice is for to be able to get something that's in stock all of the time. Yes, he did catch it out of the air. Yeah, he did. Where's that? Was it that one? Yeah. Get ready for it. I saw that in the video. Yeah, he did well landing that. And look, you know, I've said this before. I can be an asshole. And I have sat here more than once and criticised TBS for their renders on their website and other stuff. But TBS is still one of the brands. It's one of my first aircraft was TBS. I've got loads of TBS gear around here. FPV is better for having TBS in it. And having products like TBS can do like this, ready to fly style products is good. And I'm really pleased to see them do it, because you got lots of people make good wings. You've got lots of people who do other stuff. But the bit TBS tends to do better is bring it all together. And it's not always perfect. We know they've had their issues. It's not about perfection, but it is about a brand that puts a product together as a whole. And at times TBS does that really, really well. I also really like their new electronics package. And they've come up with this clip-in set, which is really nice to see for this. So it's a H7 flight controller, plug and play. Cool to see as well. Really, again, very nice to see. You've got an M10 GPS. You've got the flight controller. They've got the servos. And yeah, look, it's what I hoped the Mojito would be. It is what I had hoped the Mojito would be. I still intend to get a Mojito. It wasn't available in stock when I checked. I was waiting for it. Yes. Oh, Kofi's in the chat. I just realised Kofi's in the chat. Yeah, I had a quick chat with Trappy on the weekend. I think Trappy mentioned it on the stream. Somebody was trying to get hold of me. Kofi, was it you trying to get hold of me? And if it was, where were you trying to get hold of me? Because I couldn't find any messages. I'd love to know where it was you were trying to get hold of me, whoever it was, so I can understand what has gone wrong. Because I'm not particularly hard to get hold of. I'm on my Discord a lot. Nah, it wasn't me. Can you find out? Can you ask someone? I'd love to know what, how and what, so I can figure out what went wrong, because that worries me slightly. But look, I messaged Trappy. I believe the guys are going to send one, which is really cool. But look, it's everything I complained about with the Mojito we've got here. So look, really, really good to see. There's no complaints, no downsides, no reason not to like this. I'm not going to say it's the best. I'm not going to say it's the worst. it's nice to see TBS put a product out that anyone can use. I did laugh at Trappy's comments. I did share this on my Discord because I did chuckle at some of Trappy's comments on the stream. I'll put this up at the.
Behind this was do everything that.
Wait there. Let me. System audio. Is it that one? Does that play? Have a look.
Oh, no, I won't go there.
If you listen to what Trappy says.
The philosophy behind this was do everything that. Well, no, I won't go there.
I think what he was about to say was the philosophy was do everything those asshole YouTubers say they want so they can't whinge about it. That's what I think he was going to say, and he's probably not wrong. Or that asshole Mads Tech was complaining about, or that I'm not stupid enough to think my was even involved, but I just found the comment amusing that Trappy held himself back. But I think it was those asshole YouTubers complained about. Yeah, Tango 3, what's not to like? Rumours is Trappy sort of mentioned it in the chat. Yeah, great. What's not to like? A lot of people love the Tangos. It'll be crossfire from the factory, yes, which is not a bad thing. Look, to be completely open, TBS would recommend you fly it with crossfire. There is no reason, I think, you couldn't fly it with Express ELRS if you wanted to. That is obviously not what TBS is going to recommend, but you know, you can do what you want. But very cool. Look, really, really pleased. I really am. Perfect beginner wing. Absolutely. That's again what I wanted. I said on the stream, and I'd love to go back and watch it. I just hoped for something that everyone could fly. And that's what we've got here. That is absolutely what we got here. ELRS makes it fly weird though. There you go. So there's your official answer. Will Antigravity dominate DJI in the long run? I'm sorry, but that's a silly question in many ways, because it's like saying, will a new company who's not with a completely unproven track record in drones dominate the world's leader in drones? It's like me saying I'm going to make a car and will I dominate Ford? Come on. Look, let's be realistic here. You know, look, DJI have their troubles. Truth is, DJI's troubles will probably disappear when they deliver a solid gold DJI drone onto Trump's desk, and suddenly the problem will go away. You know, if you see a member of DJI's team in the White House giving Donald Trump a solid Mavic-shaped gold gift, you will probably see all of DJI's problems go away. That's look, you know, Tim Cook did it, so look what it did for Tim Cook. So perhaps a Neo in gold, yeah, a gold Neo. A gold Neo, yeah. Nvidia did it. No, I'm not sure Nvidia had to. I still think Trump got out-trumped by Nvidia because he sat there and said, "Who's this Jensen guy? Who's Nvidia?" And then they told him just how much money Jensen was worth. In fact, what they told him was the $3 billion that fell out of Jensen's jacket when he walked into the room that he didn't notice, that fell out. They then realised that they better keep him on side. Jensen didn't even need to give Trump money. He has so much money, just his very presence in the room would have done it. And you do have to remember, Jensen's jacket is the jacket from South Park, the evil jacket that goes around killing people at night. So that might have scared Trump as well. Just remember that. Yeah, look, Trump's not to blame for DJI's problems. Look, it was the Biden administration that signed the current situation DJI's in into law. It's like there's many reasons DJI where they are. A lot of the reasons their own damn fault, I will add, nonetheless. But yeah, Noah, as soon as he found out just how much money Jensen Huang has, and it's like, who's this Jensen guy? You don't want to know. You don't even want to know how much money he's got. He has more money than the US, basically. He is so rich, it is insane. It's just a video. Crazy. But yes, so when DJI drop off their golden Mavic onto Trump's desk, then all of their problems will go away. Don't underestimate DJI's problems could go away yet. Nothing to say this won't all vanish. What you can say about Trump is he likes a deal. And because he likes a deal, if a deal does come along on his desk and he thinks he can get something out of it, he'll do it. And then he'll sit back and say, we saved the DJI, we did a deal with the Chinese, and XXXXX. It's not game over. It's not game over. DJI, they could open source their drones. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Open source is not the solution to everything. Open source is good. Open source is not perfect. Open source is not the answer to everything. If it was, you wouldn't have closed source. A good world is based on open and closed source. There is nothing wrong with closed source in any shape or form. It's about balance in the market. You need both. Open source can also be extremely detrimental to a market as well. And it doesn't always do well. And here's a good example. Open source in 3D printing really didn't... It allowed a lot of cheap Chinese companies to bang out bunches of cheap hardware with all the same software that none of it worked well. What did it take to really turn the 3D printing market on its head? Well, it took them. And that is Bamboo Lab, and that is closed source. And that isn't because others couldn't do stuff, but what open source does at times is just allow the price of hardware to fall down, and everyone is doing it so cheap because they're not having to pay for software. They don't care about software. They just go and get the latest open source, upload it. It doesn't work properly. It doesn't function in every way, and it doesn't bring innovation always. And open source relies on the developer team of the open source project to actually drive it forward. And here's where things are different. Take Express LRS. Why did Express LRS do it better and differently? Well, the dev team put strict restrictions in place on hardware now, that it has to be supported officially or it doesn't go into the configurator, and they managed to keep a control over what the manufacturers do, and you have a highly technically capable and highly motivated dev team who did push it forward. Express LRS, beta flight's the same. Small projects. But if you look at Clipper, Clipper's great, but Clipper didn't save the 3D printing industry. All Clipper did is allow loads of manufacturers to make printers as cheap as they could. They do require, yeah, I'm not saying they don't use open source, it's not perfect, but open source is not the magic answer. You're saying that, you know, they use open code in their slicer. They do. It is based on open source, the slicer is. But the innovation was pushed in other areas. Open source alone isn't the answer. It doesn't solve every problem. And in fact, it can be quite detrimental. You need a balance. You will tell Tridge. Don't tell Tridge on me. It's all about balance. All about balance. So look, you know, we're quite lucky in FPV. FPV has a good balance of proprietary and open. If you take RC control links, lots of proprietary, some open. You've got Express ELRS if you want open. You've got Crossfire, Ghost, Free Sky, and everyone else if you want closed. You know, a real good example here is Crossfire versus Express ELRS. They're both very good links. Crossfire is great. It had its wilderness years. Don't get me wrong. I think Crossfire annoyed a lot of people with some of the bugs. It wasn't Crossfire. It's when you connect it and it loses binding randomly. Problems like that, which they fixed. But that caused some people upset. However, Crossfire is very, very good as an RC controlling, and it is still the go-to by many, many people. But Express ELRS is amazing as well. There's lots of good options. Betaflight is great. Kiss Ultra is fantastic. Betaflight is fantastic. Betaflight is better than it's ever been today. You basically don't need to do anything to Betaflight to make a good flying quad now. It's balance. A good industry, you know, look, take video and, you know, we're on to FPV. You know, analog isn't open source. Analog is just analog. So you've got to take analog out. However, if you take DJI, closed source. Avatar HD, closed source. That's driven huge progress. Huge progress. You have OpenIPC. It's a long way behind, but it's also trying to do things very, very differently. You've got to take into account today, it's not even about open source versus closed source digital FPV. It's about off-the-shelf software hardware versus custom hardware. Ignore the software a minute. It's even multiple layers of abstraction behind that when you're talking about hardware. Because DJI uses custom hardware. Avatar HD, custom hardware. HDZero, custom hardware. All these systems are all using completely custom ASICs. OpenIPC is open source software, but it's trying to do its thing on off-the-shelf hardware. And that may not be possible. It still is not remotely where it needs to be. And I've been using it today. I haven't flown it today. I've been getting set up today. And the dev team will hate me for this, but I don't BS. Nothing I have seen with OpenIPC to this day has even got it remotely close to a system. Yeah. There are people who've been able to get it working well. There are people who've been able to get it struggled. The truth is, it is as far away today as it's ever been. It is. Avatar is infinitely ahead, let alone the others. And it may never be able to catch up because the fundamentals here are different. Is there off-the-shelf hardware that's even capable, ignoring the software, of getting to where these closed hardware SDRs are? That's that problem in itself is the first problem you've got to fix. OpenIPC, Wi-Fi derived hardware. Doesn't mean it has to use Wi-Fi derived hardware, but it does. And that in itself may be the end game until someone FPGAs it or comes up with a full modem front end. You know, Artisan make chips that could be used here, but they're not going to sell it to anyone. So it's infinitely harder digital video. You know, let's be realistic here. One of the reasons, and let's not forget, and people always forget this, one of the reasons ExpressLRS was able to even exist was the ESP32 in the first place. The hardware had to exist before the software could be made to do it. You already had systems using that hardware as well, or similar hardware. The chipsets, the LoRa-based chipsets were already in existence. You know, ExpressLRS was able to massively benefit from very capable off-the-shelf hardware. It is not even remotely clear that exists for digital video today. And that's the fundamental difference. Whereas in wireless RC control, the hardware was there. It isn't the case necessarily in digital video. And that is, you know, before we get into all of the crap around software, we got to get down to that layer first. And that's the fundamentals. You know, I made a comment on stream that the day they catch up to DJI, I will blend and eat a DJI Air unit, and I stand by that because it will not happen. And that's not me being negative. Yeah, repurposed. Yeah, FR Sky. Yeah, they used the off-the-shelf hardware exactly. You know, OpenIPC is trying to do something very different. They're trying to use cheap off-the-shelf hardware, which is great. But that hardware isn't the same hardware we're already using for the same purpose. Yeah, the first mainstream ExpressLRS was based on R9, yeah. So you were already using, you know, if you think about ExpressLRS, ExpressLRS's goal was actually to untie you from manufacturer-specific hardware. Was its goal, really. And that's the problem, you know. So, but that isn't to say there won't be a place for OpenHD IPC, but I think there has to be some realistic, non-BS talk around what it is and what it can do. No, DJI did not start from open source. DJI has started from closed source from the beginning. The history of DJI starts, well, look, okay, if we're going to say open source, Linux is in there, but Linux is in everything. Let's take Linux out, okay, of the equation and just assume that almost everything on the planet runs Linux. So let's just accept that fact. That's just your core OS. DJI's heritage goes back to Artisan and WiMAX. You know, if you look at DJI's video systems, they were Wi-Fi, then they moved to custom Wi-Fi, which isn't open source. You know, it was open standard. And then it goes to Artisan. You know? CE, Hearlink, they all use basically 4G derived chipsets. Well, it's not. DJI stopped using Wi-Fi. Their current, they moved completely away from Wi-Fi to Lightbridge, which was completely different. They didn't transition, they just moved off it completely. The first RC was from a cordless telephone. Yeah, Linux kernel isn't actually open source. You know, for those of us who've been around long enough, DJI used to use Wi-Fi, and then they moved on to Lightbridge, which was completely in-house. Ironically, created with Artisan. DJI worked very closely with Artisan. I think I talked to a guy that developed what DJI used, and he said he stole it from him. Yeah, I bet you he did. Mini 1 was Wi-Fi. Yes, it was. The original E was Wi-Fi. Why isn't there WTRFS on the Integra 2-3 goggles? Is it because DJI security is that good? It's a really good question there. So, okay, the question is, why did FPV WTF stop at the DJI FPV goggles version 1 and version 2 and not move on to goggles 2, Integra, goggles 3, goggles N3? Well, it's a multiple-fold problem. Number one, the real driver behind the initial hacking was a small bunch of people who were highly motivated to support and help FPV to get MSP DisplayPort. Remember, DJI didn't have MSP DisplayPort OSD or canvas mode. It didn't exist. It was DJI OSD. So this big motivation was to bring that. So the first thing that changed was DJI introduced MSP DisplayPort. Not fully supported, I will add, but they actually gave you proper OSD for beta flight. iNav and others were left in the dark, but the truth is, about to upset some devs here, ArdraPilot and iNav's communities were not big enough to warrant too many people getting upset about it. Problem one. Problem two is that the people involved with that, who did it, moved on. They moved away from all of the DJI hacking. They have got on with their lives. This is actually something I have seen happen time and time again. I was around for the first hacking with KF and everyone. When they first hacked all of the DJI stuff, the OG team. I was around then and saw them, and I floated in and out of them officially and unofficially because they hated me. But they are the same. You get a small group of people, get involved, and then they disband. And the third reason is, yes, that DJI have improved their security. Now, that isn't to say that it can't be done, and that isn't to say that there are not root hacks available for the current systems. But you also have to take into account a root hack also has to be persistent and unfixable. So, what I mean by that is this. The mod and the hack for the V2 goggles is unfixable by DJI. No matter what they do, they can never close that door because the guys now always have a way in. They have a fundamental access to the way the hardware works, which means they can't stop it. They cannot prevent it. That isn't so much the case with the newer hardware. There are roots, but the problem is if you burn an exploit and then DJI patch it, you're screwed. The fourth biggest problem now is that there is no one to do it. The team has basically disbanded. There is people, there is funding available if anyone wanted to work on it. There is support available. Even I on this channel will support. But it needs some people to really spend some time on it and do it. And no one's really interested because, look, we would all love to have full adjustable OSD on the DJI goggles, so you can put the files on the SD card and upload it. So you could have full color OSD. But the DJI have done just enough that most people aren't really worried about it. So that's why you don't see... I'm just turning my aircon on, it's just getting hot. That's really why there's no hacks. So it's lack of interest, lack of people to go and do it, change in DJI security policies, and the fact that DJI somewhat implemented a workable solution. They gave us MVP, minimal viable product. And MVP means the interest fell away. Just catching down on the chat. Yeah, it's really hot here. Right. Aha, last month of winter. Yes, I bet. Right. Next news, whilst we're on DJI, before we get on to HDZero, Flywoo have done what we've been waiting for forever, and that is not that, it is this. They have released camera modules for the DJI O4 cameras, both the standard as well as the Pro. The modules are available for 22 quid for the Lite and 36 quid for the Pro. It is worth noting, though, that these will suffer the same will not calibrate issue as the modules for O3. Nothing has changed in that regard, but you can now get the camera modules, and you can even get the interposer board from Flywoo as well. They've even released the mini board. So this now means you can fully repair your O4 cameras. I don't know how long they're going to be available for. I don't know what the time frame is on this. I don't know what the stock is like. It says only 10 in stock, so be careful. But fair play to Flywoo for getting this out. They've managed to source them. Really, really good to see. You will get the camera calibration error. Really good. I'll come on to that super chat in a minute. Really good to see. Aren't those fair? We don't really know where these have come from. The suspicion is they're either getting them directly from the factory before DJI has put them through their system, or they are recovered from crash drones and stuff like this. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a mixture of both. But yeah, they are available, but they will give the calibration error, but they should work. So look, it's really good to see. It's really, really good to see. I do have, they're not copies. They are genuine DJI parts. When I looked at them before, no one could copy it this close, because you'd literally need the molding. I suspect they're reclaimed from damaged, is what I suspect. And the good news is, if you're after just the lens bit, you could, in theory, glue that back on. I have a review of this coming this week. Firefly 16, this is a good little quad. Only with the new camera. It won't give you it with the interposer board. The interposer board should be fine. It would only be the camera module. So, yeah, really cool to see. Really cool to see. Okay, super chat. I'm trying to desolder some motors, but not able to get them off at all at 650 degrees C. Okay, how big is your tip? Because your first problem will be how much heat is your tip able to get into the solder? How big is the tip on your iron? Because motor pads have a lot of copper around them, and it needs to be able to get the heat into it. Flux as well will help solder flow, but what I'm worried about, can you get any of it to melt? Because if you're stabbing at it, if you're there and it's not melting any of it, then you have a problem. The real key is how big is the tip? The tip of the iron is what will make all of the difference. Good solder, good size tip, and flux. Flux will help it flow. But if your tip is very small, it ain't going to allow enough heat to get into the board. Remember, you're trying to melt a metal and the heat is coming from the iron. I'm not responding to that, Lon. I'm not going there. I don't know how big your tip is. As an example, right? So that is a conical tip. That is a chisel tip. That tip is not going to get any heat into a motor pad at all. Whereas this tip, whilst not the biggest, that is going to get a lot more heat into the pad. Not ideal. This is one of my old ones. I actually, I'll be honest, for quad builds, I keep around quite an older soldering iron. These are from the Axon irons. These are my small tips. But I keep around let me just find it. I have a few big old irons, and I keep a couple of big tips around like this. And I run these at like 450 degrees C in the UK to get it to. This isn't massive, but I keep a big old tip around. You want something big. I like a lot of heat on an iron as well. I run my irons hot. So, haven't used this for quite some time. It's a bit dirty, but yeah, look, that's the truth is you don't want to waste time. Metcal, I haven't heard of that T90. I haven't heard of that. What's that? Let's have a look. T80, is it? T90? So... yeah, that looks okay. But you're going to want to... You want a good size tip for it. Get a pencil. Yeah, look, you want something with a decent tip for You know, look, that's a nice selection of tips there. That is. But just take into account some of these irons don't get as hot as you would like. You know, you need something with quite a lot of heat behind it. That's actually a good selection there, because you've got a nice big chisel, you've got a conical, a bent conical, and a small chisel. Yeah, they're all variants. These things are all variants. They actually look like the tips for the accent. Like, I love the T3A. This station is phenomenal. I use this daily. That's my daily drive is the Accent T3A now. Honestly, this iron is phenomenal. This iron is absolutely phenomenal as a product. It really is. This is my go-to. And then I got the 245 handle. It's just a phenomenal soldering station. Phenomenal soldering station to have on the bench. I actually like Axon's portable I reviewed. I'm using 80-watt iron with nothing but flux. This is actually very good, but it's got the T380 they made, I reviewed, but it's got a horrible problem. And the horrible problem is the battery goes flat when you leave it connected and it's never charged. This is a battery soldering station. So it's got two 18650s inside. And it's called the Axon T380, but it's really handy because I can just put it on the bench and use it. But the battery, if you don't disconnect the battery, it goes flat. They've never fixed that in firmware. But it's a full station. It takes the tips like this. So you can store the tips in the top. And it's full. And you've got the quick replaceable tips, so you can go in and drag them out. Usually works a bit better than that. And I got a small chisel on this one. So yeah, it's a good little station, this. But it's just got that annoying problem. Do I use a solder fume filter? No, I prefer the bent tip. Yeah, conicals. So a bent conical is handy for very micro work where you want to get over the top of stuff. Mostly microscope use, I use the bent conical. So that's mostly on the microscope. Mostly on the microscope. Silly question. Have an old school hexcopter with AKK 4WRX of unbreakable altitude. FPV 600 milliwatt doesn't have the range I want. Can I run both? Almost like reverse diversity. Right, let me just go back up. Hexcopter with AKK 4 RX, 4WRX, having breakup at low altitude. FPV 600 milliwatt RX. Well, your RX wouldn't be... I'm trying to get my head around it. You're saying 600 milliwatt. And for what RX? Are you talking about transmitters? You can't run both transmitters at the same time. You will have major issues. Just exhale it, ventilate. Yeah, blow I always do. Yeah, receivers. Yeah, look. Receivers. I'm a bit confused. Because the AKK for what is a transmitter? I mean VTX, sorry, long. Yeah. They will. Yeah, don't use them together. You will cause problems. Don't use them together. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Incredible $10. That's amazing. Yeah, don't use them together. You will cause all sorts of problems because you'll get more multipath. Remember, we're in analog. Multipath is the enemy. Multipath is the devil. You will get crazy multipath with the two transmitters because they'll be slightly out of sync. Since LiPo HV has just been 4.2, okay, so the question is, since LiPo HV has just binned 4.2, but are they though? Are they just binned 4.2? I think it's a dangerous assumption to believe it just is. Unless a battery manufacturer out and out writes our 4.3 volt cells are just binned versions of all of our cells, then technically you could do it, but you are asking for problems. That is entering horrible territory. You just can't. Okay, the next thing I need to talk about is HDZero, because this week HDZero rather surprisingly announced some NDAA compliant products. Now, this was a bit of a surprise because none of us saw this coming. There is a set of NDAA compliant FPV goggles. There is the camera, there is the long range VTX, and there is the race VTX. Now, these are NDAA products, DiviMath HDZero. Look, these are being sold under the DiviMath brand. Remember, DiviMath is the HDZero. Now, the big difference with these goggles and these transmitters is it is encrypted video on these. It is not the same. There are differences. The information that was posted on my Discord is it is a different set of boards inside. We don't know what's changed. We believe HDZero's always been able to be encrypted. Made in Thailand too, yes. Slightly different boards. I don't know the ins and outs. If I'm honest, I haven't had a chance to ask Carl. I don't know if he's even going to be able or will tell me. Exclusive to NDAA products. So these are available at a higher price point, obviously. Looking at the design of the VTX, just coming down on the images, I'm not seeing great differences, although I don't have a picture of the other side to compare, so I can't say. I'm not seeing any new chipsets or anything like that. These are obviously not for the average user. But they are NDAA compliant. Latency apparently is untouched. Yes. So, HDZero has gone the same route. I'm intrigued. How do you bind these? If they're encrypted, how do you bind? Is there a binding process? Is there... I don't know. So they have their NDAA product declaration PDF. Look at the about page. I haven't really had a... Where's the about page? We got support, NDAA compliance. You upload an encrypted package from High Command. Interesting. See, I'm reading about this slightly different. Encrypted video streams can only be viewed using DiviMath NDAA compliant receivers. That would imply that they are not linked. It would just be that any encrypted one on channel R1 could be received by any set of these goggles. And it isn't a straight that receiver to that goggle, or that like it is with DJI or whatever. That to me implies that it's encrypted, but if you had 3 sets of goggles of these NDAA compliant ones, they would all be able to receive the same signals. So like HDZero. Yes, it would just mean the public goggle couldn't thing. It doesn't necessarily say that, but yeah, interesting. I need to ask Carl. I need to ask Carl. Because it doesn't feel like it's directly encrypted. That's interesting. Never thought of it that way. I'm selling my kidney, someone said. Definitely one I need to ask Carl about. Very interesting. So, anyway, not for the average Joe. We all know what this kind of stuff is for. At least there's no pictures of them carrying payloads or anything like that. It's not just about war. Remember, it's about law enforcement these days. Look, you should... Not everything is based on war. People criticized me for what I said about Batshark, Rotor Riot, Unusual Machines, Red Cat. But just remember the very different narrative that they were pushing versus some of the others. They were literally flying a quad with a payload on the bottom of it. So, you know, there's a fundamental difference that, you know, some of them are out and out going menacing. Just listen to the music on the Red Cat stuff. Have they released a video recently? I haven't even looked. Have they got a YouTube channel? Red Cat Holdings do. Yeah, no, there is. They were trying to sell wire-guided fiber optics to hobbyists 2 videos ago. Yeah, I saw that video. Great fiber will be over my ear. Yeah, look, NDAA means it can be used where DJI can't in a lot of cases. Fire, search and rescue. NDAA is much bigger. This is not we're selling drones to carry weapons, bombs, anything like this. I would be extremely disappointed if I saw HDZero do that. Again, there is a fundamental difference between what I have seen from Rotor Riot, Red Cat, Unusual Machines than there is anyone else when they were directly saying strike-capable drones. That group of businesses was directly targeting drones for killing other people. I have not seen other companies out and out advertising that way, and that is the fundamental difference. I don't get on my high horse over Red Cat, Rotor Riot anymore. I said my bit. I still think Sean, who was with them, is a great guy. I have nothing against any of them at all, but I think the messaging they do and have created is deeply damaging for FPV, and that is why I don't agree with it. Look, we all know the reality of that's where the money is. They just basically stood there and said, show me the money. And that's what they did. While saying, and it wouldn't have been so bad if they'd have pulled the you don't get to know, but they literally said the unspoken thing out loud. If he'd have actually said what he usually says, Drew, which is, you don't get to know, we wouldn't have had a problem. But he didn't. Instead, they said these unsayable things and basically said selling strike-capable drones and yeah. That's the problem I had with it. I don't... Look, do I have a problem with a drone company making drones for use in war? No. I've said that before. It's not about that. But it's about being a company that sits there and says, hey, we're the bastion of good for FPV. We're bringing kids in. We're showing kids how to use drones. We've got all this stuff. And then on the other hand, here's a grenade we've strapped to the bottom that we're going to show you how to launch and kill kids in another country. That's the bit I found distasteful. So, that, I think, is it. There has been, I think, there's been, I think Stu is going to talk about some stuff on his stream about Avatar. I don't have any official images. I have been shared some stuff on my Discord, but as they are from someone else who has already said they're going to talk about it, I don't really think it's fair for me to talk about it at this point. What I would say is that go watch whatever Stu's got to say, and I'll probably watch it later and then talk about it next week, because that's the only fair way of doing it. It's not for me to gazump someone else's stream. I don't do this for the clicks or the things. What's up with JB? I have no idea. Look, JB UAV Futures. Sorry, Stu. I believe he's got some images of what is coming from CADX. That's what I've heard, seen, told. So whenever he talks about it is whenever he talks about it. I don't know. Look, JB remains to be the go-to on how you do FPV YouTube properly, how you put out engaging, educational, useful content on a level that I never have done. JB is a machine at delivering content in a certain way, 100%. But JB does it in a certain way, which I intentionally choose not to. I don't script a single video on this channel. I know JB does a little bit. I've heard him talk about it. I just do my thing. And I sometimes think it would be great to do it this way and then change. But then I realise the time and effort that's going to take, and I haven't got time for that. But JB he's his own man. He does his own thing. You know, I'm not what I would call a friend of JB's. I don't know him particularly well. I think I spoke to him briefly once. We've had messages back and forth. He said some amazingly kind things over the years. But I can't comment on what JB's doing. I can only ever comment on the content. And as I always say, JB is the standard. But if I did it, what would be the point of me doing it the same as JB? Because that's JB. You know, you'll notice I've never made a beta flight video. I don't do it because what's the point? It's JB. JB does beta flight videos better than anyone. I probably at times need to put a lot more, or at least more time into scripting. Some of the comments recently have been interesting, and because I don't script, you get me talking as it is, as I am now. You know, I make my content as I actually run this live stream. I understand the product, I look at the product, I sit here and have a think of, okay, so what would I like to do? I tell you what I don't do well, and what JB does do well, is JB creates a story arc. JB will start a video with, what's the message I want to get across? And that message might be, as an example, if you're someone who is new to FPV, this is probably the best radio you can buy today. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. And that's like the story arc that JB has created for that video. You know, and I don't mean this radio specifically, but a good example of that would have been the Pocket, which is over here. So JB starts with where does this fit? And creates a story and a narrative around that. I actually tried to do two things. Yeah, JB was in IT and he has somewhat of an educational background. I've tried. Believe it or not, I don't have an educational background. I have been training engineers for over 20 years, on and off. I've trained many people over the years, but I do things a bit differently. What I try to do is show you the product, and then I give you my thoughts. So I go, here's the product. I try to spill as much info about the product into the video as I can. And then, I can't really comment on that, John W. I'm the guy that's banging out 1 hour videos recently. I've got no grounds to talk on long-winded. And what I try to do is let the product talk for itself and then give you a thought. And I put in, one thing I think I do, I put in a lot more opinion into content than JB. I can't think often JB puts too much opinion into his content, his reviews. JB tends to sort of, I've noticed, and if you think that's good for you, then, and you liked what you've seen, then that might be worth checking out. And he tends to hit the middle ground. Whereas I'll sit here and go, this is an absolute load of shit that you shouldn't go near. As an example. And that's the big difference between I lay in my own opinion on the end of it. Whereas I think JB finishes his content more of, if you've liked it, if you liked what you've seen, you can go check it out. It's available here. Whereas I just have, then I'll just go, fuck this, it's a load of shit, or I think this is great. But it's up to you. I give an opinion. That is why I get to deal with less brands. I'm not saying, and look, I want to be clear, I'm not saying anything is right or wrong here. I will often lean on the negative than the positive. That's just my personality. And if I think something should be better, I am critical of that fact. And I think that could be better. That's not great. That's good. That's amazing. Yeah, and I have intentionally steered away from how-to content. I used to do a bit of it. I don't anymore. JB does great how-to content. I have done some how-to content. I tend to be more informational content. Not how-to. Usually this brand has fucked this up. Or there's this problem. Look, one thing I do that virtually no one does, and I believe I'm right in saying this, I will give you content over the life cycle of a product. And what I mean by that is this. If you look at my content life on DJI original FPV system, 02, 03, 04, I tell you how it's going over time. I'll do a 6-month follow-up. I'll do they've fucking released new firmware. They've done this, they've done that. I don't review a product and then never talk about it again if there's no new firmware. Sometimes the firmware updates are minimal and I'll chuck it in a live stream. But I do cover over the life cycle of a product. So if you sort of go to the playlist, you'll see an entire range of content over the life cycle of that product. Not so much on things like HDZero, because that's quite hard. But like DJI, Avatar, new firmware, they've done this, they've done that, they've done this, they've done that. You know, it's about, I tend to follow up on especially digital FPV. Hard with radios and HDZero and others. I actually made a complete Express RS series that I never published. I never finished editing and published. 10 videos. There's 10 videos that never went out. There's 10 videos that never went out. Because I wasn't happy with them and I kept losing my way with them. Yeah, you know, Bruce is we're all a bit different. I also am not full-time. So, you know, if I was full-time, I would have a very different content policy. No, I know it does not. If I was full-time, I would actually create probably 3 videos a week, every week. And one of them would always be a how-to guide on something. If I was doing content, I would probably do that. If I was full-time, I'd go like on Monday's video was going to be this week's how-to on HDZero or Express ELRS, and I would, if I was full-time, I would do it that way. And you've got to take into account, JB has been full-time for a very, very long time. I believe he's working. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm also not at all shocked if JB has gone back to work and do some stuff after being full-time at YouTube for so long. Because I can imagine, and I don't know, and this is just purely me, I can imagine if you were having to do this every day for 3-5 years, probably there's a point where you would want to go and do something different. I can easily see that. I could easily see that. You would want to have a break, do things differently. You know, FPV isn't busy at the moment. Yeah, money from contract work's pretty good. Look, at the end of the day, take into account, right? The big affiliate world from FPV income is over. You talk to Andy RC, you talk to any of those guys in the early days of FPV, there was a lot, and I'm not saying Andy RC or the others made a lot of money, but I can tell you now, there was a lot of money roaming around in FPV in the early days. That isn't the case anymore. I can promise you that. Everyone is scratching. Hell, even Linus was talking this week at how YouTube is down for them. It is for us. You know, YouTube is down for me. It'll be down for JB. But it's down for, you know, even Linus is talking about how YouTube is falling. And if you add on top of that for FPV, we haven't really had product releases. You know, there's a reason why I'm so excited about the TBS wing. Something new, you know. No, the scandal's nothing to do with the numbers being down at the moment. The scandal was largely bullshit in the end, and they recovered after that. He's already talking about it's YouTube is down. Everyone is seeing it. It's across the board. YouTube is on the fall. You know, you got to remember as well. That peak period was COVID. Remember the peak period. Trump was writing people a load of checks. People were blowing money on computer gear and hobbies. I can't remember how much those checks were you nutters over in the US all got. You all got checks from Trump. We're now on this spiral down. Everything is downsizing. You're getting people. Like, for anyone who follows this, Microsoft, Intel have laid off, what, 25,000 staff? Intel are in trouble, to say the least. Yeah, Intel are in trouble. Microsoft are laying off. There's lots of people losing their jobs. The world is contrasting. You got watch time is down. You know, I'm not doing badly. It's not that I'm sitting here saying things are terrible, but the truth is the world is in a bit of a downward spiral, and that affects everything, including YouTube and in COVID, Trump was sending out checks, wasn't he? If I remember. Not to all of us. Yeah. Well, Trump was both. COVID was both of them. 1,200 Trump bucks. DGX. I don't know. Yeah, for those who don't know, YouTube have just introduced age verification. I don't know. It's a bit early because it's only been 2 days. But yeah, and YouTube is an ever-changing algorithm that you can't win. People using video game faces. Yeah, look, so it's all going to have an effect. It's all going to have an impact. And as a result of that, we're all going to feel... Yes. YouTube's introduced age verification that if it thinks based on your content watching style and the details you've provided you are underage, it's going to ask for details. So, but look, it's... The reality is things are on a bit of a downturn right now, and it's hitting everyone. So. Right, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. ID. Photo. Yeah, it's all a bit weird. If you let your kids watch your account, you might be in trouble. So, that's all the big news this week. Very big week. Very big week indeed. Obviously, the A1 stuff now is going to take months. It's going to be 3 to 4 months minimum before we know any more on that. HDZero's goggles, there's not a lot more to say on that. Obviously, Flywoo stuff. TBS, you're going to be hearing some stuff about it. That's for sure, which is good news. And I guess it's go and say hello to Stu and find out what he's talking about. Look after yourself. stay safe. I will speak to you again, same time, same place next week.